Where is Skypey Wipey? These damn computers always want to be moving stuff around on their own. It makes me crazy. All right, here we go. Let's see, get our butts going here. Drop that out the way. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're live. Welcome everyone to UFO Undercover. Hope everyone's having a great morning, great evening, great afternoon, wherever you are on our big, beautiful blue planet. And I tell you every week, I mean, there's no else place I want to be on Wednesday night but right here. We always got a great lineup of guests. Always got a lot of good conversations going on. Sometimes just abundance amount of research information because we really want everyone out there to learn as much as they can. You know, in the end, we're not here to say anything, to buy anything, or anything else for that matter. We're just giving you the information for you to do with what you want to do with it. I'm not going to try to force anyone to believe my own personal opinions about anything because I'd rather you come to it on your own conclusions, or if you don't, that's fine too. I mean, we live in a free country, last I checked. You know, I've come to worry about that some days, but for right now, we still live in a free country, so we don't have to worry about it. But really, people, get out there and do your own homework and your own research. That's what we're here for, to present you the data and let you decide what you want to do with the data. I leave it up to you. I figure most of my listeners are pretty intelligent people, so I figure you can figure this out on your own. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's some not so bright listeners out there, but they don't listen to this show. They listen to some other show. I'm just saying, people. You know, I've heard questions from the audience on this show many, many times now for 15, 16 years, and they usually ask pretty pointed questions, usually pretty tough questions, and they expect good answers. Now, we really try to stay away from fluff radio. It's just not where we want to be in the radio scheme, and we really do try to stay to as much on the research basis as we can. You know, we talk about this all the time, who's coming on the shows and who's not coming on the shows and the different topics we talk about, but from time to time, you know, we stray away from aliens and things along those lines and move into other things. And I was talking with a guy, a friend of mine who does booking for Galaxy Press, Carmen, and we got to talking about Michael Z. Williamson. And the reason why is because it came up because he's actually a disaster preparedness expert. And it all came up because of Hawaii and what was going on in Hawaii. So, you know, and since then, the plot has even seemed to thicken. So I said, it's a good place to start with Michael. I'm sure he's familiar with most of this stuff. And I think we'll start right there. So, Michael, how you doing tonight, man?
Very good.
Good. You can hear me okay? That's good. Yeah, I'm glad.
Yeah,
you're always,
absolutely.
I love having you on. You know, now, before I get you into this about Hawaii, tell a guest a little bit about yourself and tell them where they can find you if they're looking for you and stuff like that, and then we'll get into this Hawaii thing.
Sure. Well, my website is michaelzwilliamson.com. You can also find me at sharppointythings.com, my hobby of making knives. I was born in the UK, raised there and in Canada, moved to the US, enlisted in the Air Force. I was in the Air Force, then I was in Army National Guard, Air National Guard, Army National Guard again, Air National Guard again, and retired. Along the way, I did a lot of repair of things. I was in an engineer unit. I started writing on various subjects, firearms, Second Amendment, disaster preparedness. Started getting published, started making a living at it, which I'm very grateful to my readers. And I've had some interesting consults. And in fact, I had a discussion on alien invasion for a TV show for Discovery Channel and another one that was for National Geographic. Discuss all kinds of disasters. I'm editor-at-large for survivalblog.com by Jim Rawls, which is a phenomenal resource for this kind of subject. It covers everything from economic disasters, hypothetical invasions, hostile governments, just about anything.
And, you know, it's interesting because there's so much to be preparing for. You know, I was talking with a friend about this. I mean, not just when we talk about just natural disasters, you know, especially depending on where you live, California, the South. I mean, look at poor California. I mean, they getting floods, rain, fires, rain like they've never seen, fires all over the place, the ground shaking out there. Now they're talking about they might be getting hurricanes. I mean, there's a lot to prepare for, not including that right now the world isn't the most stable place on the planet. I mean, most stable place to be. So I'm kind of curious, but you know, getting into the Hawaii thing, it's kind of interesting because here we are. You know, this is a missile defense alert. First off, how in the hell do you make a false alert? And then I hear the guy didn't know it was not a real alert. What the hell was going on there?
Yeah, apparently they were supposed to have a drill, and allegedly this guy was not told that it was a drill, and hit the real button. And the photos taken of him, you can see that the password for the system is actually written on a sticky note right behind him, which is not a real safe thing to transpire. So yeah, the whole thing is very questionable. The fact that they decided to have a drill right at that particular moment is also very suspicious. This all could be a matter of coincidence, but if you've got a political agenda to push, that was the perfect time to have a false alarm and terrify a bunch of people that they were going to die.
They did a good job of it.
Yeah. And realistically, I strongly doubt that North Korea could reliably hit Hawaii.
Yeah, maybe if it parked inside of it, shut up. I'm sorry.
Let's put this in perspective. They're not a competent nuclear power like Pakistan. This is North Korea.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Pakistan could put a wallop on us. We would, of course, annihilate them afterwards, but still.
Yeah. Yeah, Pakistan's got reliable nuclear weapons and delivery systems. North Korea is a joke. Even if they hit, the weapons they have would not be particularly effective. I mean, certainly there'd be all kinds of fallout. There would be people dead, but it wouldn't have wiped out the entire Hawaiian archipelago.
It'd be more like a dirty bomb more than it would be don't get me wrong. There would be a little wicked explosion, but not. Last I heard, the one they had was about half the power of Hiroshima or Nagasaki. I'm sorry. And now that doesn't mean it hasn't improved, but to put this in perspective, I know Hiroshima and Nagasaki to y'all was just unthinkable, and it was. But compared to the kind of warheads we have today, that's nothing, people. I mean, you could put them two together, and it ain't even 1% of what we've got today. This is a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, it's not just power. There's also accuracy and efficiency. And Hiroshima was a horribly inefficient device. But they knew it was guaranteed to work, which was the issue.
Which one was it? They missed the target completely. Was the second one? They missed it completely. They dropped it in the valley next to the city.
I can't remember if that was on purpose or not.
It might have been on purpose. I don't. I heard a lot of theories about that, but no one actually ever came out and said, no, we decided not to kill another 250,000 people. And whoever just posted that, no, they didn't kill 250,000 initially. It was much less than that.
Right.
Thanks to the radiation and other things, it eventually killed about 250,000 people. But it did end the war, and everybody decided that nuclear weapons were bad, nasty things, and we shouldn't use them. Okay. Now everybody's got to have some. China's got some pretty bad nukes these days.
Well, you're not a real member of the club unless you.
Yeah. And
you got to have.
They got about 500 nukes now.
China.
Yeah.
If so, that's a lot up from what they were, because they were actually.
Maybe I'm getting them confused
modest.
with somebody else. But you know what? Maybe that was France that had. I thought India had like 28 or 48, and I thought India originally only had like 68 or something. But somewhere just recently on one of the weapons charts I've seen, somebody went up. I might be getting them confused with France or somebody, but I was actually surprised how few nuclear weapons the Europeans have. I guess they don't need it when America has 10,000 of the damn things.
I thought we were down below 7, possibly below 5 at this point.
No, well, actually, to rectify this, ladies and gentlemen, we have about 11,000 nuclear warheads. We have about 5,600 on actual missiles. So they got them sitting on a shelf somewhere. They're supposed to be disposing of it just like the Russians are. The Russians are supposed to be right around us too now. But still, guys, even 5,600 on warheads is plenty enough to wipe the planet out, or at least the northern hemisphere.
Well, remember, we had a lot of multiple reentry vehicles that can handle multiple warheads.
So here we're talking about, so they accidentally or on purpose, whatever they did, they tripped this missile thing. So I guess the U.S. Navy decided today they were going to test a missile to shoot down a missile, and it missed. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before anybody starts writing to us, the government has not officially announced that it was a failure, but everybody else who's seen it said it was a failure. So, I don't like laughing about our government's mistakes, but I'd rather be honest with us.
Oh, well, governments for honest. I mean,
well, I mean,
that's crazy talk.
The government can be
that's crazy
just
talk.
Be like that. As honest as our government can possibly be.
Yeah.
Daryl, look, I could not tell you which government was more corrupt. Let's wait a while. We'll discuss that in about a year.
I remember explaining to early on in the Gulf War, well, not the Gulf War, the Iraq War. I remember explaining to a couple of people. The U.S. isn't the top because our military doesn't make mistakes. It just makes fewer mistakes than everybody else's military. Yeah,
it's true. We do make fewer mistakes, but we do make mistakes.
Yeah,
I mean,
Russia's military. Yeah, Russia's military makes a lot more mistakes. You could be somewhere like any of the African countries. I mean, their militaries are rather pathetic. I hate to use harsher language, but that's pretty much the case.
Well, that's like somebody the other day screaming at me on Facebook about, oh, we can't get in a war with North Korea because they're the best military. I'm like, guys, Iraq had a better military than North Korea does, and we just walked over there like they weren't even there. I'm like, what are you talking about? So they had a 1.5 million man, pretty up-to-date army backed up by Russia and the United States. I mean, they had some of our own equipment, and it was fairly modern.
Actually,
North Korea's equipment is Stone Age.
The only equipment Iraq had from us was mostly helicopters and trucks.
Yeah, and that was in that original deal in the very, very beginning when we thought this was somebody we could work with, and he turned out to be whatever he turned out to be.
Yeah, but that was before 1968. We stopped arms trade.
Oh, yeah, that's a long time ago, yeah, because whatever deal we had with him or whatever we thought we were going to do with him never worked out the way the government wanted to.
That was before. Yeah, that was before he even came on the scene. And then Iraq had a large military, but it wasn't a well-constructed military.
No.
They lacked engineer support. They lacked logistics. They had lots of young men in uniform with guns. But that by itself does not constitute an effective military.
You got to have leadership too. It's just with air superiority, they never stood a chance. And that's why after 7 months, you started seeing people turning in, their weapons. So they just, okay, we surrender. We don't want to go here no more. This is not a fair war. We're getting our butts handed to us. And there was never any prayer for Iraq. I don't even know why they even started with this because there was never a prayer. But it's the same for North Korea. If we decide to really deploy, I mean, we got 3 carrier groups there now. We can have air superiority in less than 2 or 3 days. So I don't know, where North Korea's going to. I mean, they can bomb South Korea, maybe. If we don't go and wipe out all their stuff.
If there's 3 carrier groups there, we have our superiority in about 5 minutes.
That's pretty much. But I was trying to be polite.
I went down a list once. The most powerful air force in the world is the U.S. Air Force. The Russians are second. The third most powerful air force in the world is the U.S. Navy. Then you get to, I think, China and India are in there, and Britain, I think, is 5th. And then the 6th most powerful air force is the U.S. Marine Corps. Our Navy's Army has its own air force. And if you count rotor wing as well, the 10th most powerful air force in the world is the U.S. Army.
Well, because we believe in 2 things: air superiority and sea superiority. We're not playing when it comes to these. Because we know if you control those 2 areas, you can pretty much control everything else. Because it's not necessarily.
And I think the
starve them out and stuff.
Yeah, and I think the 8th most powerful Navy is the U.S. Coast Guard.
I wouldn't doubt that. Right? Coast Guard is pretty bad these days. It's got some pretty.
Yeah, even our theoretical civil police entity is a respectable Navy. So.
And actually, what's good about it is, the training for the Coast Guard it's not as intense as when you join the Navy, but it's still a pretty good amount of training for what they're doing. And they're very strict on what they do. They had a couple of friends serve in the Coast Guard. I served in the Navy. I was on the USS Nimitz, but it's I liked being in the Nimitz. I got to say, I was proud to be part of the air group, and I was part of the River Rattlers, and I worked on A-7 Corsairs and F-14 Tomcats and all sorts of fun stuff. A-6s, and we did all kinds of stuff. It was funny though because I always get in trouble because people, on one of my bios somewhere, it says I have a Class 10 security clearance, which most people don't even understand what it is. And yes, it's like 4 levels above top secret, but it's not because I know anything like aliens or anything like that. It's just parts of the ship I worked on. I had to have a way. Anything in a reactor room, you've got to have above top secret to work in the reactor room. They don't care who you are. You'd be a freaking lonely grunt. They don't care. You got to have the security clearance. They're not going to bother with it. And then when people find out about it, yeah, they don't care. You go in pain. Because you could be a spy or you could be, a terrorist or something. You've got to be checked out. It's just how it works. And all groups and all nuclear ships, including submarines, have select groups that go in select areas because they have the clearance and, of course, the skill level. And I was an advanced electronics.
You weren't on the nuclear vessel Enterprise?
No, Nimitz. I wish, I tried to hell to get on the Enterprise, man. They would not let me. They were like, no, you're going Westpac. I said, no, I want to be at the Enterprise. And the guy's like, no. First, I wanted to go to Europe, and they told me, you ain't going to Europe. So then I'm like, okay, well, put me on the Enterprise. And they're like, no, you're not going to. And I'm like, I'm an air day. You got to put me on an aircraft carrier, and I'm a good one. So I know you're not going to put me on a crappy carrier. I already knew I was going to go to one of the good ones. And they said, you're going to the Nimitz. We want you on the Westpac duty. I was like, son of a bleep, 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 bleep. And then I never got to go to Hawaii, not one time. Even though the Nimitz ported there 4 times when I was part of that damn crew, I never got to go. I was like, man. But guys, don't get me wrong. I loved it. It was a lot of fun. It's really dangerous, too. I'm not going to lie to y'all. If anybody decides to go do this for a living, a little piece of advice. Navy's a great place to go. It's a great place to be. If you don't like water, don't join it. If you don't like not seeing friends and family for 6-8 months a year at a time, don't join it either. But if you like to travel, you like to see things, and you like a little bit of excitement in your life, because I got to tell y'all, the flight deck of a carrier is one dangerous place, man. Shit just goes wrong there. Even when you're most prepared. I watched one day, the pilot was taking off and the front wheel just collapsed. So the plane leaned over and just flew straight into the tower as he's ejecting, going off the side of the ship. We're worried about if we're going to mow this guy over because the ship's behind us. And, because a lot of times we're in the wind, we're usually running 30 knots. So if you fall off the front, and I've watched planes get mowed over by the carrier. I mean, and by the way, guys, them turbines in the back of that carrier, nuclear power, don't even know that plane went underneath it. It just rolls right over like it's nothing. And you can look at the back, you see pieces of plane coming out. It's still going.
It's like bugs on a windshield.
Yeah, and I shouldn't laugh. I mean, no one got killed when I was there, but a lot of people got hurt, man. I mean, the guy who ran in a tower, he broke 2 arms and a leg coming out of the cockpit when it ejected because the plane tilted. And when it did, it slammed him one way and then slammed him the other way as he was coming out. So he was pretty messed up. And then, I watched one guy. He really got burnt up pretty good on one side because the damn plane caught on fire as it was going off the end of the runway. It's just crazy out there. But then, you know what? I watched people in boot camp end up in the hospital because the doctor was giving them shots with air in the gun and no medicine. Idiots. Ooh. Oh, yeah. We 2 of our guys woke up one night with big bubbles on their foreheads. And we're like, what's going on? And I come to find out that's what had happened. Because, they're hitting you. You're going in line. They're like guys on each side of you, just shooting you full of God knows what. Yeah, God knows what's in me, people. I had no telling what kind of experiments the government was doing. You get sick and stuff from all them shots too. It's a crazy thing, but now getting back to reality here. For going back to the Hawaii thing for a minute. So we had a failed test. I mean, a failed nuclear shoot-down test, and now we've got. And then we had the bogus or not so bogus, missile warning. What would you tell Hawaii? I mean, what should should Hawaii people just keep going on status quo, don't worry about anything? Or should they actually be worried? The only person I'm worried about shooting him is Korea. And like you said earlier, I don't really.
Right.
Not sure they can hit him.
I've been to Hawaii, the big island. It's actually one of the safest places in the world. The earthquakes tends to be very, very mild. The volcano is so polite. It sort of just oozes out some lava. And you have plenty of time to load up the car and drive away. And they don't get a lot in the way of tropical storms. Yeah, it's actually a very nice place to be. There's not much you can do about a nuke other than not be where it's going to hit. There isn't really a reason for anyone to hit Hawaii with a nuke. It's
really not even a strategic target. It could be if we were war, but just to shoot it, I would figure you'd want to hit New York or L.A. or something like to send a message.
Yeah, the port at Long Beach, Bremerton, somewhere with some
Norfolk.
relevance.
Yeah. You know, it's
really
funny, but Norfolk,
if someone's going to
Virginia
shoot at Hawaii, there's really nothing you can do because they're crazy and stupid.
well,
yeah, I mean, basically the only way to avoid a nuke is not to be there when it goes off. And, you know, for most purposes, Hawaii is actually one of the better places to be. Otherwise, you know, the Rocky Mountain states, away from where any main whistle tubes are.
I'm sorry, go ahead. This guy just wrote in when you were talking about nuking Hawaii. And I was like, Hawaii's just a good place. Leave it alone, people. If you're going to nuke something else. And you know, we've talked about Kim Jong-un. I'm not even sure he's going to try to nuke America. I mean, if he wants to have a successful, maybe go for Guam, maybe go for Japan, maybe go for South Korea. But, I mean, it's...
Well, what Korea's done for the last 20 or 30 years is make a lot of noise, scream about how angry they are, and people reward them with money. They're throwing a tantrum. And, you know...
Those days are over now.
Yeah, there's plenty of criticisms I can make of Trump, but in this case, you know, telling them just to shut up and grow up. I mean, that tweet in response to their, you know, we're righteous and angry, and he says, tell that fat little twit, I've also got a button on my desk, mine's bigger and it works. I mean, that was exactly the right thing to say. It's like, you don't scare us and you're a joke. Shut up and go home. And all of a sudden, now North Korea is having some actual discussion with South Korea again.
Well, I mean, Trump's the only president I've ever seen to get China to put pressure on North Korea. I got to say, I was impressed by that because no one, well, Ping wouldn't even talk to Obama about it for some reason, and neither would Putin.
I think
Here comes Trump, and it's like, okay, we'll go and talk to him.
I think China's concern is they don't want a large Western presence on the Korean Peninsula right on their back door.
They don't want 30 million refugees either.
Right. So they're concerned. Well, I mean, not necessarily opposed to the refugees if they can locate them slowly. So China's concern is that we don't plan on moving in there and settling. As long as they're assured that we're not going to do that, it's not their problem. They're going to stay out of it. I'm sure they expect dibs on North Korea if it collapses.
Well, what Putin said he would. What they should do, because Russia and China share a border with North Korea. Russia's got a small one, but still, Russia said what they should do is split North Korea in half, give one half to South Korea as kind of a unification, and let Russia and China expand its borders, which would please all three people, and it would also keep basically U.S. itself off the continent. I mean, we'd still be giving South Korea weapons, and we would have a footing for both China and Russia, which would be nice. But it would appease everybody, and of course, it would get rid of North Korea. I don't know if that's the way it's
that's actually a very reasonable solution to the North Korean problem.
He's gotten way
sucks
more
for North Korea,
going.
but you know,
for some reason, I think he's a little bit scared of Trump. I think all of them are a little bit scared of Trump. I know I was hearing all this collusion stuff, but you know what? First off, he's been way harder on Russia than Obama had, and on top of that, he just told him the other day, "Get your ass out of Ukraine. We're selling weapons to him now. You ain't got no business being there, Putin." Neither Bush or Obama would tell him to get out of. It's come a point where America needs to stand up and let the world remember, hey, we are still the most powerful nation on the planet. Leave us alone. Stay off our interest and go do something else. You leave us alone, we won't blow you up.
Yeah, regardless of what you see in the press, most Europeans respect a powerful leader.
Yeah, they do. And you know that. You want
Especially one who's got...
Sure? Well, I've been watching a lot of Euro news and stuff because when we do news, I like to bring in the Euro news too. And so they're showing these guys in the British Parliament in England and in Germany. These guys are Trump lookalikes. They got the orange hair, the big butt. They could be just younger versions of him, man. It's just crazy to watch. And most of the world leaders now are conservative, or I don't know if they're conservative, but they're not liberal. So you've seen a big.
And if you remember the last couple of French presidents had really hot-looking wives or mistresses, and the Italians have always expected their leaders will have a hot-looking wife or mistress or both, because that's what men do in those societies. Yeah, they see Trump's got a supermodel, and they're like, "Well, this is a man of character and respect." Yeah,
they
whether he is or not, that's how they perceive him.
Yeah, and it's a shame, that they can't understand that the country really likes the guy. He's not going anywhere. It's just not going to happen. I know they want to get rid of him and all, but Now we got Putin over there doing peace things. Come on, when's the last time that any Russian, for that matter, has gone out and let's do some peace talks here? In the old days, Russia would have just kept blowing people up until it was over with. So there's a change, there's a fundamental change, and I have no doubt that Putin likes Trump. I don't think there was anything more than that. I really think he, like I said earlier, I think he's more scared of Trump than the fact that he likes Trump. Because
Putin
Trump
wants what's best for Russia.
Yeah,
And any leader any national leader should want what's best for their country. But we have to worry about this country and this guy. Someone from another country asking me, what the U.S. is, what Trump's doing about Haiti. It's like, why is Haiti our problem? Haiti was a French colony that collapsed, and then they left the mess for us to clean up, as they did with every other colony. Southeast Asia, the southern part of the U.S. where you live used to be French until they gave up and abandoned it and let the U.S. clean it up. Yes, it's what's been going on for a long time. And it's like I don't remember Trump having a campaign of make Haiti average for once. Haiti's allied with the U.S. and poorer than Cuba, who's an avowed enemy. So that corruption is deep-seated and not our problem. And then I've always heard, well, Americans never consider other countries' interests when they go to the polls to vote. It's like, well, why should we? You consider ours?
I know. Why would you?
Yeah. Any leader should be supporting their own country, and a lot of people seem to think that I liked Putin. Like, I don't like Putin. I respect the fact that he does what is best for his country. Yeah. And he would make a terrible president here.
Oh yeah, here he would. But he'd already been impeached.
Yeah, but within Russia's political structure, their history, their society, he's the right person for the job, and he's taking care of Russia, which is what he's supposed to do. You can fault his methodology or the his moves on the Ukraine.
I can't hate on it the Ukraine. I understood the Ukraine thing because I know a lot of people didn't understand why he took the Ukraine, but he needed a port. I mean, he's basically hemmed in now that the Soviet Union's gone, and he needed a port.
Russia has
a port.
Yeah, Russia has the Baltic ports. Well, actually, they lost the Baltic ports because they lost the Baltic states. It gives them the White Sea, the Far East, which is no use to them, and they need something on the Black Sea more than what they've got.
Yeah, and they were pretty griping too. Now they might see some luck here if global warming heats up a little bit more for them and opens up the Arctic some more. But right now, half the time their ports are locked in by ice. They needed a port.
Even if those ports open up, they're still remote from anything.
Yeah, that's the point. I mean, so he's hemmed in. He wanted a port that he could use to, not to attack. And ladies and gentlemen, whoever just sent me that's not to attack us. He needed that port to threaten Europe and the other people. Not that he was going to actually do anything. He just wants them to know, hey, I am still here.
And for trade, you need ports so you can bring goods in and send them out. There was a proposal that's still out there from the Nursultan Nazarbayev, the president of Kazakhstan, who turned that country. There's criticisms of him. He is a bit of a strong man, but he turned the country around very quickly after the Eastern Bloc collapsed. They paid off the IMF funds in a matter of years. They've got low taxes, lots of resources. They don't tolerate terrorists. All the jokes that were made in what the heck was Sacha Baron Cohen's movie about Kazakhstan, Borat. But despite all the jokes, it's a very effective country. His proposal is to dig a canal from the Caspian to the Black Sea. There's actually low-level terrain that would be conducive. It'd be like a 200-mile-long canal. But if they did that, that would allow all of those inner Asian countries access through the Black Sea to the Mediterranean and the Atlantic. It'd be tremendous for trade into that area. And they've got gold, diamonds, uranium. They've got all kinds of stuff that people will buy and can use, but they can't get it out from their landlocked position. But his proposal would benefit several of those countries as well, and probably Russia.
Russia needs to get out. I mean, right now we're trying to bankrupt poor Russia, but it's. I know people. Yeah, well, no, that's how we ended. That's what I told everybody when Reagan came in. I said, he's going to end this war by bankrupting Russia. He's going to force
Yeah,
them into a war, a race that they cannot win. And and they were still paying off their debt from the space race, and we forced them into a weapons race. They were just like,
it
what
was
the hell?
5%. It was 5% of our GDP, and it was 30% of theirs, and they couldn't do it.
They can't do it.
Yeah.
And somebody asked me the other day, well, why do we think of Russia as more of a threat? Well, when you look at Russia, guys, Russia's got about a $1.3 trillion economy, where the U.S. right now is sitting close to $30 trillion. It's just not a comparison. I mean, to be honest with you, this year's budget for the military is going to be almost $1 trillion, right about $800-900 billion. That's pretty much half of Europe and Russia and China combined. That's how much we're going to spend on military this year. And you wonder why we're
on an economic comparison. Russia is roughly equivalent to New Jersey.
that's
Seriously,
a good comparison.
Seriously,
I didn't say that. Michael said that, y'all. Look, all my Kazakhstan friends out there, y'all right to me. But it really is a good comparison.
Yeah. And when you get to other European countries, a lot of those, they're nations, but they're the size of a Midwestern state, and their population is 3 to 8 million people. They're not anything significant by themselves. It's only because they're part of, even before Europe had the unification it has, it's because they could trade with each other and they could pool together for resources and shipping.
I see my British friends are still happy with being Brexit, huh? I don't see any change there or anything. They seem to still be happy with that. Hey, look, I'm not hating on anybody.
I think that was the best choice
for them. Yeah, I really do. I think it was the best choice.
I was born and raised in the UK. Europe doesn't consider the UK to be European. They're British.
Yeah, they consider.
And Britain doesn't consider themselves to be European. They're British. They were always going to be the creepy uncle, the weird cousin at that table. They were
and
never
the British
going
will be happy to have control of their money again too. I mean, the pound sterling was always the most wealthiest money on the planet, and they wanted to stay that way. And being part of the EU is not helping them out. And then of course, Merkel, Angela, pissed them off when she let 1 million Muslims into the EU without basically even warning anybody. So they have never got over it. Yeah, that is a German Hillary. And but she didn't start out that way. That's the weird part. She was way more conservative when she first got into office. I don't know what happened when she served as head of the EU and then went back to chancellor. Something flip-flopped, and I have no idea what. Maybe it's the pressure from the EU itself. I don't know what it was, but she definitely
It seems to happen to a lot of career politicians.
Yeah,
they start either believing their own press releases, or they get into the political mindset rather than the national representative mindset. It's a very common thing. I mean, what does Congress have as a approval rating at this point?
Oh God, I don't know.
But they're convinced that they're doing the right thing and that people love them. And we'll keep voting for them. Sometimes out of necessity, sometimes out of lack of choices, sometimes out of desperation. But and it's possible their own constituents like them, but nobody else does.
But it's funny. I'm glad you. Well, I'm going to stop you for a second because I want to go back for a minute. I'm glad you brought up the Congress thing because I was thinking when you said that it's far low. All the media ever does is harp on Donald Trump's approval ratings, but Congress is both houses together. It's still blowing up Trump, man. I'm like, last I heard it was like 11% for one and 9% for the other.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, come on, people. You're harping on a president who's got a 40%, and y'all, it just doesn't make any sense. And I never was big on poll numbers because, news on the flip side, we run a lot of polls. And we run polls, people, that 30, 40, 50,000 people take, not 100 or 1,000. So our polls are a little bit more pointed. But let me explain this. Even if I took 100,000 citizens, and I could guarantee you that it was a cross-section of everybody, it does not tell me what that 120 million who are going to vote are going to vote. And if you don't believe me, just look at the last election. How can you be off by 15 points? It's impossible. Unless you were trying to rig the thing from day one, there is no way you can be off.
They were.
Yeah, well, I know that.
Well, the questions they were asking were not going to give a neutral response. There was a push poll. They were trying to get the figures to match the response they wanted. And their intent there was that if enough people believed it, so don't you want to vote for a winner? And people weren't buying it.
And I
And
think
that's
it
happened
worked
before.
opposite. Yeah, I think it drove more
Yeah.
people to the polls. I think people were like, "Really? You think that's what's going to happen? Well, watch this." I
Well,
guess.
California, 2008, California had a big voter initiative to get blacks and Hispanics registered to vote. The theory was that they were going to vote for Obama for president, and a lot of them did. But I mean, he was going to take California anyway. And then they were shocked when a bunch of largely Baptist blacks and largely Catholic Hispanics voted against gay marriage.
Yeah,
What did they think that demographic was going to do?
They thought, that's the thing about liberals these days. A long time ago they weren't like this, but today it's whatever I say y'all are going to do. It's not let me help the country, but it's do as I say, and I'm tired of that. After 8 years of that, I was like, okay, stop telling me what I'm going to do. I'm an American. You can't tell me what I'm going to do. And I told everybody, 10 years ago when they started with the health care, we're going to force it on you. I said, that's the end of your party, people. The country is not going to take it. And then y'all couldn't stop at health care. You had to start forcing other things. And the country said, really, watch this. And you got voted out. And that's what happens in the U.S. when you don't do it.
I've been joking the last couple of months, for 8 years, any disagreement with the president meant you were a racist. It couldn't be because of his policies. It had to be because of his skin color. And then now anyone who disagrees, anyone who agrees with the president on anything is a Nazi. And I'm going, so for 2020, they're going to have to start calling us gay communists. Because after you called someone a racist and it didn't work, and you called them a Nazi and it didn't work, where do you escalate from there? Worse is there to call someone than a racist and whatever.
It's like watching the thing last night. So I sit down and I was back here, so we actually broadcasted it live, both in video and audio over the network. So I'm listening, I'm watching. So I got to say I was disappointed by the Democrats, but not all of them. So I'm watching Nancy Pelosi and a couple of the other leaders with their face like, if y'all can see mine, you know what I'm doing, people. And it was just horrible. I was just like, oh my God. But then a couple of people around them would clap. And then one time, a bunch of them stood up, and Nancy looked at them like, and you could see it on her lips, people. You got to be kidding me. Did y'all just stand up? Now, I will give Nancy this. Before the union address, she told the Democrats in chambers that you cannot argue with the president when he's giving the State of Union. You can't, and the country actually got upset when they booed him. But the cheers were so loud that you really couldn't tell he was being booed. But I listened to this speech, and I'm an independent or a middleist or a centralist, whatever you want to call me. And I came away with a good sense. And this is the second time in less than a month I have seen an entirely different Donald Trump. When he went to the business meeting in Europe, he is a whole different person. He's not the guy that we all see in the White House. He was in his environment. He was doing his job, and he was loving it. And you could see the difference in him. And same thing here last night. He wasn't praising himself. He wasn't clapping for himself. He was clapping for the country. He truly does believe America should be the greatest nation on the planet. And we haven't really had that since Ronald Reagan, people. I mean, we just
so
haven't really had that.
What he does, because he recognizes publicity, he also recognizes that the president is largely cut off from direct contact. And he may be making the tweets, but I guarantee he's got a panel of people looking at responses to the tweets.
Oh, yeah,
And what he's always done is he'll he's a businessman. He throws an idea out there. What do you think of, X? Oh, that's insane. All right, well, what about X minus 5? Well, that's still X minus 10. Well, if we had to accept that, we would. So X minus 15 is cool? Yeah. You always ask for more than you intend to get, and then negotiate down. If you ask for what you want, ask anyone who's been in business or in a divorce. If you ask for what you actually want, you're going to get boned.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen.
You ask for the moon, and see what you can get out of it. And what he's doing with Twitter, and I don't pay attention to Twitter. In fact, I actually got my account nuked. I offended somebody 2 weeks ago, and they won't tell me who or why. But I made them afraid to have a voice, so they nuked my account. I no longer have access.
Don't feel bad, Michael. We got banned from YouTube for 90 days. It's and look, for
I get banned from
than
Facebook. I get 30-day bans on Facebook pretty much within a week of getting back on.
Everybody
I have
tells me
accounts.
that. I say I got 9 accounts on Facebook. I say all kinds. They have never, knock on wood, they have never banned me. They've never even reprimanded me. And I say
I have
shit.
A stalker.
And I post stuff all the time. I'm using links from all kind of places because I do the news feeds over there too. And you know what they sent me today? They sent me this thing. Do you know that you could be making money? You have high hits.
High performing posts. Yeah, they want you to pay them.
Yeah, that's exactly what they want.
Yeah.
So they started off as all like they're going to pay you, and then you go read it and like, oh, give us $5 and we can. But no, screw you. If I wanted to boost it, I'll go boost it on my radio network. I don't need you to
Exactly.
boost it.
I'm a best-selling author. I don't need them. Yeah. But yeah, what Trump's doing there is, one is having his people monitor the response, and two, he's trolling liberals. He's trolling them hard.
Yeah,
I caught that tweet of his. He tweeted, "I am a very stable genius." 6 words, and for 3 weeks after that tweet, they were shouting at each other. They were shouting at anyone who disagreed with them. They were arguing on whether or not that statement could be used to impeach him or have him medically removed from office. And if you spend that much time on a tweet which has no legal standing whatsoever, you are as far from stable and as far from a genius as you can possibly get. Regardless of what he is, you're delusional and stupid. It's a tweet. Ignore it. Move on. But they spent, I was watching people spend weeks. And I wouldn't have posted something like that because it's kind of asking for fallout. But, he wanted the fallout. He wanted them to.
But, and in the beginning, I just thought he was just crazy. But I watched him for the last 2 years. He wins every time. It's like he knows ahead of time what's coming. I mean, I guess he's good enough ahead that he knows if he says this, they're going to do this. And in the end, just for ladies and gentlemen, just to help you with this, there was a lot of things Trump was accused of, which all turned out to be false. But more important, there was a lot of things he said that the media and the country jumped on and said, oh, it's not true, it's not true. And this is the easiest one. CNN did one where they said he was under investigation for 6 months. That turned out that CNN had to apologize. It was live, but better than that. Mm-hmm. I mean, they said, the president came out and said they're wiretapping Trump Towers. They're doing this, they're doing that. And the whole country. And
now it turns out they were.
Yeah, they were. The whole country, every media organization, but I think Fox, but everybody else was like, oh, no, that's not true. The president came out and lied. By the way, what the president did when he said that wasn't going on, he lied. And that's the second time he perjured himself in front of the country that I know of. He's probably done it more, but that was an impeachable offense right there. He's gone, so there ain't no reason to worry about it. But still, man, he came right out and lied. And now we found out that everything the president said that was going on is true. So now that he's saying this about these memos and he's saying that this Mueller might be on the corrupt side, I got to think he might be right. And in the old days, I said, no, that's crazy. But he's turning out not to be.
Information investigator professionally. And she's got the resources to see a lot of this stuff and look at it. And it's either a huge number of coincidences, and coincidences do happen, but there reaches a point where you go, and this really doesn't look like it's a coincidence anymore. This looks like collusion. Every time Trump is I remember, I don't watch much TV, but he ran the show The Apprentice. So why does a billionaire, businessman, real estate guy want to be on TV on a reality show? Why does he do that? And then they had the Celebrity Apprentice, and one of the guests was Illinois Governor Blagojevich, who's now in jail, like every other former Illinois governor for the last 30 years.
Louisiana a lot too, so don't feel bad.
But who was a complete idiot, couldn't even figure out how to turn a computer on, much less use it. And Trump says you're fired. So America got to see this businessman fire the governor of a major state. And why does a man who's in real estate want to be on TV? So he becomes a household name and visible. Why does someone like that want to be a household name and be visible? So that people recognize him when they go to vote for him. He was planning a presidential run back then.
He switched parties. That's how you knew. He switched parties. Yeah. Everybody forgets, in case you don't notice, ladies and gentlemen, and Donald Trump was a Democrat for like 35, 40 years. He switched parties, and no one's, and what frustrates me about this is no one in the press on either side ever asked him why he switched. The question never came up for some reason. The whole entire time during the election, no one asked. We tried to. I sent him a lot of questions.
They did not want to mention. Well, they didn't want to mention that he'd been a Democrat in case it got Democrats to vote for him.
That's true.
They were never going to mention that. True. Yeah.
The other night I was doing a thing. I did a segment because it was 1 year from the president. So I went and found election night, NBC, ABC, CNN, CBS, the whole bunch of them, right? This was, okay. We did a panel that night. We called the election at 8 o'clock Central Time. That's how sure we were that the president was going to win. At 8 o'clock. Here's CNN and NBC and CBS. They're going till 2 a.m. Hillary's already conceded, and they're still saying she still has a path for victory. I'm like, what is wrong with these people? And then when they finally realize, and y'all go look for yourself, this is all on YouTube. When they finally realized that she lost, they became the nastiest people. Now, I haven't seen anybody act like this in any presidential election but this one. These people started.
Oh, Mad Cow melted down.
Yeah, they said that everybody that voted for Trump was a worthless piece of you know what. Well, we felt like that for everybody who for Hillary. So it just, you know.
Yeah. You're all Nazis. You're all racists. And when they were talking about, I never knew there were this many Nazis in the country. I'm going, man, even if we emptied the secret Nazi moon base, we wouldn't have enough Nazis for what you claim is going on.
Well, you know, I put up a thing where we would give someone a show complete for 90 days. We'll do everything for them. All they got to do is show up and do it. If they can give me one time where Donald Trump said on television or on the radio where he made a racist comment or a sexist comment. I said, I want to hear where he said something derogatory about a woman on the air, not when he was talking to his private buddy, not as some tape that somebody had. I said, I want to hear him say it. And I said, more than that, I said, I want to hear him say any racial slur anywhere. I said, let me hear him say the N-word. I said, let me hear him say anything that's racist. And they can't get it.
An awful lot of women have no problem about joking, get them by the balls, about men.
That's
perfectly okay.
This isn't because when you look at the last election, everybody's like, well, Hillary's going to sweep the women. And well, she didn't. She was 50-50. And it was pretty much divided along party lines is what it was. And actually, I think this time you'll see more women vote for Trump this time. I really do, because he's really, I mean, come on. Blacks, just every ethnic group in this country at the lowest unemployment rate in their history. I mean,
it's not just that. Again, people respect a powerful man who accomplishes things. Even if they don't necessarily agree with him, they respect decisiveness.
And I'm going to say this again. I do not want to see the guy who's in control of the free world crying on national television. I don't care if men cry. I don't have a problem. Look, I've said this before. Y'all want to go cry, go in your room, shut the door and cry. During Katrina, two of our leaders got on television and cried. Both of them lost in the next election because nobody wanted to see that. Same thing, you know, like Boehner. When Boehner got in cried, we see he was gone because the country – that's a weakness. And it's a weakness, and it's not really a weakness. It's a good thing for men to do because men aren't allowed to do it basically in society, even in today's society. But when we see it, whether you're a man or woman, black or white or anything in between, we take that as a sign of weakness. And we do not want,
if you're the guy or girl in charge, you've got to be the guy or girl in charge.
And you got to look at it from our point of view and the world's point of view. Okay, the man who controls 10,000 nukes is on stage crying right now. No. That's not going to work, people. And Janine, even if it was a woman president, she could not cry. She would not get reelected if she cried. You have to show that you're in control all the time when you're president. You don't want to cry, resign and go take a good cry. I don't have a problem with that, but not when you're defending my nation. And I want someone who, and this is, I think, another reason why Donald's going to probably win in 2020, is he's proud to be an American, and he makes Americans proud to be American. Under Obama, we were taught that we were nasty and hated, and nobody liked us, and nobody loved us. I see the world seems to love us a lot more right now. Y'all don't ask me why.
There were Democrats I could vote for, and none of them made it onto the ballot.
Well, I would have voted for, what's his name, the guy who ran against Hillary and Sanders, the governor. I would have voted for him. He was a good candidate, but he wasn't going to get the elect. He wasn't going to get it. Yeah. Even though he was better than Sanders and Hillary put together. I mean, this guy was an actual governor, a successful governor. He had a good record. Seemed to be no controversy associated to him. So the guy who was
he
actually
wasn't socialist enough to
kicked
he wasn't socialist enough for the crazy arm.
And then the Republicans, I was impressed with 16 candidates, male, female, black, white, Hispanic. They were serious, and they were young. There were a lot of these candidates who were younger. So where the Democrats used to be the progressive party, I hate to say it, judging from the last election, it looks like the GOP is the progressive party now.
They fell for the same flaw that the Republicans did in '96 when they put Dole up. Yeah, he was the eldest party member, therefore it was his turn. And that's a terrible way to pick a candidate. And with Hillary, it's her turn. She's worked so hard, it's her turn to run. But is she the best candidate you can run? The answer for anyone.
And when
she was not the best candidate.
When McCain was running, she was the candidate to run, but they decided to put Obama up because they didn't think a white woman could beat a little old white guy, so they put up a black guy. in the hopes that he could beat McCain. I got to be honest with you, just like I predicted this last election, when I told everybody the House, the Senate, and the presidency would go to the GOP, it was for them to lose. It was pretty much like that when Bush left. It was up for the Democrats to lose everything. They were going to get everything because Bush and them, the press was so bad on them that was going to happen. And that's the same thing in this election. When Donald Trump got the candidacy or the nomination, I was a little worried that there might be a chance he could lose. But even then, I thought he was going to beat Hillary. I couldn't see the country putting the most corrupt woman in politics in office. And people, I've said this before, I would have voted for her in 2008 before I knew all this other stuff. But she got cheated. Everybody forgets that Hillary won the nomination, but they decided to say that Florida and one of the other states were ineligible because of the way they sent in their votes. So they deliberately gave it to Obama, just like this time they deliberately gave it to Hillary instead of Bernie. Even though Bernie was the favorite candidate amongst the Democrats, they gave it to Hillary. And he might have been enough. Bernie might have been enough to get a couple of more states.
It's interesting. One of the things that's not often been handled well in science fiction is political futurism on how elections are held and such.
I'd like to see us. I'd like doing, and this is something you can comment on right here. Let's think. How could we get more people to vote? If you made your phone or your computers, if you could do like a retina scan and a fingerprint on them, where you could only do it and they could only be locked in for one vote, I think you'd see way more people vote. Going to the thing makes it harder to get people to go out and vote. But if you could vote off of your phone or your computer, you'd see 200 million
Washington State either proposed or is giving people like 3 days to vote. And I see positives and negatives. On the one hand, it gets more people to vote. Too. On the other hand, it turns it into a race, and then of course,
turn into a race. And it also makes it easier for people to get in and change the votes too.
Well, and then there's times when I'm traveling and I will vote absentee. I'll go to the courthouse ahead of time. And so a few years ago, I was going to be in Germany over Election Day. So I went to the courthouse the month before, 30 days before is when they opened up, cast my ballot. And then 2 weeks later, it wasn't really dirt, but it was something I hadn't known about when these politicians came out. It's like, if I'd known that about him, I would never have voted for this guy. But it's too late to change my vote now.
Well, did you seen that's what they said about Obama when, that photo with the Muslim leader just came out. He had taken this before when he was a senator, before he was running for president. He's in there with the Muslim Brotherhood and the Muslim Brotherhood's leader, and he's all smiles and
really
cutting up. Oh yeah, and they just put the picture out. It came out about 2 days ago, and pretty much everybody who's seen it said the same thing. I would not have voted for him if I seen this picture. Because it kind of proves what everybody's been saying. He's pretty much Muslim. He's not really a Christian or anything. He's really a Muslim, and I just kind of proved it. And it was more than that.
And people always assume that means a religious connotation, and it can just be a secular cultural connotation.
Well,
I'm completely non-practicing. I haven't been religious for years, but I'm the product of a Christian society, and my morals and background are largely Christian because of that. So most people in this country.
Yeah, but Obama's isn't. He was raised, his dad was Muslim. He was raised in the Muslim religion. Matter of fact, from what I understand, he didn't even convert to Christianity till he met Michelle. So, I mean, he was a devout Muslim, people. And he's been seen with the Muslim Brotherhood.
He was at least a practicing Muslim. Yeah.
Yeah, And then more than that, though, I mean, if you look at his policies, things like what he did with Iran, and he was anti-Israel, pro-Iran. That's a first. I don't think we've ever had a president that was pro-Iran before. And pro-Venezuela and pro-Cuba. I mean, what he liked the company of dictators. I guess he wanted to be one. I mean, I don't really know, but he just liked the company of dictators. And these were countries that he seemed to be.
Well, they throw the best parties.
They probably do too. That's the sad part. And you see immediately, Trump immediately changes the Cuba deal because we're like, no, he's going to change the Iran deal and then how? And I still don't understand how he got away with giving $4 billion in cash. to Iran. I mean, the 150 billion, I understand that was because of equipment and all, but $4 billion in untraceable cash from 11 countries, that's giving money to terrorists. And we know now that money ended up in Yemen and other places. So I mean, I don't know how he got away with that.
And of course, there's Muslims and then there's Muslims. Islam is a product of Arabia, and the Arabs have been fighting each other, and the Persians and the Kurds and everyone else long before religion came into it. They've been fighting
over territory, before water areas.
Yeah, before the Bible came along, they were fighting each other.
Yeah, they needed the resources. It's a sparse area.
Yeah, I've got friends from Turkey who are Sufi Muslim, and they'll eat pork, they smoke cigarettes, they drink beer. They're pretty casual. I've got friends from Indonesia. They'll eat pork. They don't smoke, but they drink beer. They're not nearly the same type of Muslims as you find in the hardened core of South Asia, the Afghanistan area, and Iran being the Shia, and then the Sunni Arabs.
I see they trying to change out there. I noticed. I seen Saudi was really surprised me. That new prince is just going to town, man. He's like, he's getting rid of all the corrupt big guys. Yeah, he is. He's getting rid. He just letting them putting in 300 movie theaters. They're still going to dictate what y'all can watch, but they're letting women don't have their face be covered anymore. They still got to wear the thing, but they ain't got to cover their face. They can drive now. That was a major step forward.
I've got a book here. This is the autobiography of King Hussein of Jordan. It's Uneasy Lies the Head. I just took it off my bookshelf. So let me read you the first couple of lines of this book. Okay. When I was a boy, my grandfather, the King Abdullah, used to tell me many a time that Jerusalem was one of the most beautiful cities in the world. His first love, it is true, was the Hijaz, where he was born. That arid stretch of desert north of Yemen, with Mecca, the birthplace of Islam, in its heart. It was from the Hijaz that my grandfather first marched north in the Great Arab Revolt, or as it is more properly described as the Arab Awakening. It's written in English. He's Arab, but he was trained, he was schooled in Britain. He went to Oxford. And, he was the one who dragged Jordan into the 20th century. And Jordan, they export wine. They have a very stable relationship with Israel. They don't fight each other. He got Western education. He saw the advantages of not constantly having tribal warfare and took efforts to stop it. And the new Saudi prince is the same way. And
it's nice to see.
The up-and-coming middle class in Iran are largely Western educated.
Yeah,
they're just waiting for the old guys to die off.
Yeah, they're out in the streets riding. Matter of fact, they were. I read an article yesterday where they want their women not to have to wear the headgear anymore. They don't want their faces covered. I mean, they want
their engineers, their lawyers, their doctors are largely Western trained and realize it's like this way actually works better. Same with China. Most of China is just waiting for the old guard to die off in their 80s.
Well, and that's another thing. China's a good example of a communist country that's successful, but it's not quite a communist country. Ladies and gentlemen, in case you haven't noticed, governors down in China are elected. Everyone else, though, is assigned because the Communist Party is still a communist party. But Ping has got to be the least communist I've ever seen. I mean, he was educated in America. He did his business in America. He really understands our country much better than any other Chinese leader ever did. And he's trying to model his country after ours. And if it involves, eventually, India is going to pass up China as an economy market, probably in about a decade. But once China gets out of communism and becomes a full democratic nation, I don't think anybody's going to be able to stop them. And I'm not talking about militarily. I'm talking about financially. With $1 billion,
for most
crazy.
of recorded history, the last 3,500 years or so, China was the largest economy.
Yeah,
they didn't interact with us a whole lot, but they didn't act like a superpower, but they were the big economic powerhouse, and they've stated their intent is to regain that. They want to have a bigger economy than the U.S. has. They've got more people in the same size. Well, they've got more people in the same land area. They potentially can do it.
Well, they got the same land area if you do away with Alaska. If you don't do away with Alaska, because they were talking about
depending on how you measure waterways, as either territory or not.
Mm.
The U.S. and China are pretty much tied for land area.
They what I like about China is there's a lot of good things about China. China's got bigger problems than U.S. because one of the things they were talking about just yesterday is U.S. per acre. We have more fertile land than anybody on the planet. You'd have to go to South America to get more fertile land and more acreage for growing food. We have room to expand, whereas China really doesn't. They've got a lot of mountainous, a good third of their country's mountains. You just can't. It's like living in Afghanistan. You're just not going to be able to do it. But China's got potential if they become a non-communist nation. If they stay where they are, they're just not going to make it because, unfortunately for China, the people want to change, the government wants to change, but if the people who are taking the money doesn't allow it to go back to the people, they'll never change. And then China and India will just zip on by them like they were sitting still. India, you have to remember, ladies and gentlemen, in the beginning, and I told everybody this was going to happen, in the beginning, we started to invest in China, and then we realized China is still a communist country and still doesn't want to play by the world rules. So then people like Bill Gates and other big companies decided, you know what, we're going to invest in India because India is appreciative of it and China isn't. So now that's where all of our money and investments go in India. And at this rate, India will pass up China. Militarily, they're not there yet, but they're on their way. They'll probably tie up with China's military sometime in the next decade. So, and then population-wise, actually, in case you don't notice, ladies and gentlemen, India, so population-wise and militarily-wise and financially-wise, is supposed to pass China in the next 50 years completely. And they say at a rate that China won't be able to catch up. It doesn't really matter. I'm not sure about
population because India is making a lot of efforts to promote birth control and family sizes.
Yeah, they were talking about that too, and Bill Gates gives out contraceptives and all kind of stuff over there, and that. But the reason they said that they were going to pass them up is because everybody in India is going to start outliving everybody in China. He said because they're offering right now. I don't know if their health cares are probably comparable, but because of America pushing the way we're pushing India, now that's going to change. But India is not a country. Everybody automatically assumes India always sides with America. That's not true, people. They side with Russia sometimes. India is part of the Commonwealth, so they have to honor the treaties that they have with the United States because of the Commonwealth. But still, they are still an independent nation. They're not a. They're not a. Everybody always thinks, well, they got to listen to what the Queen says. Not really. They don't want to. They don't.
No.
They can tell the Queen.
She's
too bad.
She's chief of state, but she is not head of government.
That's right, and people forget that sometimes. The Commonwealth's an interesting thing, and no, Billy, we're not part of the Commonwealth. No, we just have a mutual pact with Europe, but we're not, or with England. We're not part of the Commonwealth, though. Canada is. A lot of people are. It's just not us.
Canada's officially not politically a Commonwealth country anymore.
Oh, they got out? Well, you see, that's even better. Now we can go invade them. That's good. Now we can go invade Canada. I'm ready. Let's invade them.
See,
watch
the
out,
problem is if you invade Canada, you have to take Quebec.
Well, no, Quebec's okay. Quebec's okay because I got some Couillon relatives out there, so the Acadians. If we can keep the Acadians, go ahead and wipe out the rest of the Quebecians.
The Quebecois. Yeah.
It's well, people. Let me explain this to you. Canada, as big as it is the second largest landmass. It's Russia, Canada, and the United States, and that's the size of the landmasses in the world. But Canada's only got 38 million. They don't have as many people as California does. I mean, really.
And 90% of them live within 100 miles of the U.S. border.
Yeah, that's the other thing, and it's just funny. No people.
I'm in a town here. I'm south of Indianapolis, rural Indiana. I'm in a town of 50,000 people. Well, I'm near a town of 50,000 people because I'm actually not in town. The population of the Northwest Territory in Canada is less than this town. The population is like 35,000 people for the entire territory, and that territory is like the size of Texas.
It's big.
Or possibly Alaska.
There's just a lot of land up there that just it's just it'll be years before it's used. Actually, no, Christopher, we wouldn't invade. We would annex Canada. Yes, we could legally annex Canada. We could legally annex Mexico if we wanted to. Mexico, we're not real happy on doing Mexico right now. But Canada, we might annex. If America decides that, if we decide that Canada is a risk to our well-being, we will annex them. We won't go fight with them.
Someone on
we'll just
annex
them.
someone on one of the forums I'm on, and I don't know who because I'd love to credit them, said that charges of imperialism would be more believable if the U.S. regarded the world as a prize to be won rather than a nuisance to be tolerated.
That's good. I like that.
It's
we're Americans. We tolerate everyone. We do think most of y'all are a nuisance.
I mean, I moved here as a teenager, and I have really no interest in moving back to Canada or Britain or to anywhere else.
I got a lot of friends in Canada, and I don't want to live where you're already in a colder place than I want to live. Hell, I was bitching this year because we've had snow twice and freezing temperature. Come on, I got up 2 weeks ago. It was 16 degrees. I live on the Gulf Coast, people, and it was 16 degrees. I'm like, what the hell's going on here, man? Well, I was actually on the radio going, where the hell's global warming? I need some global warming today. What's going on?
Global warming can also make it colder.
But you know what's funny about all of this? And everybody forgets this, but in the 70s and 80s, the scientists were saying that we got an ice age, coming back for an ice age, we're back in a flip-flop. It's been 15,000 years, so we're back in a flip-flop counting for the ice age. In case y'all didn't know, ladies and gentlemen, the planet gets hotter before it gets colder. So even if this was truly global warming, we would still have an ice age afterwards.
Yes. Well, all the legit scientists are saying that the glaciation is inevitable. The question is just how long is it going to be before it hits?
I think it's going to stretch out a little longer than what we're talking about, but it's hard to say. I mean, for the most part, where I live, I can't speak for the whole world or the whole country, but by the way, ladies and gentlemen, below the equator, there doesn't seem to be any climate change going on. There seems to be a northern hemisphere. It's more so. Well, I mean, there's some, but there's not like there is up here. So what's going on?
There's more land in the northern hemisphere, which has
which makes it hotter too, and it's also more people up here, quite a bit more.
And but the Antarctic has had some significant ice shifting, but they're not entirely sure of the cause. They found out a couple things about Antarctic just recently. Most of the glacial meltdown is coming from a volcano that's actually underneath the ice. They found this out just recently. It's also caused the plate to slick. But the Antarctic's actually been gaining ice, not losing ice. That's what people don't realize. Satellites, NASA got all mad because they were sending these images to the whatever they call themselves in Europe, and for this climate change thing. It turned out that it was actually growing, and it's actually growing at a fairly good clip too. So they're not exactly sure what's going on. Why the one up north is shrinking? Why the one down south is growing? But there seems to be a cancellation from one side to the other, and they don't know why. So it kind of limits. It kind of helps their argument a little bit that man's causing some of this because the northern hemisphere seems to be having a bigger reaction than the southern hemisphere does. But it doesn't effectively prove it because, unfortunately for them, and this is all scientists agreed with this is the calmest 10,000 years in the history of our planet as far as they can tell. They can go back 65 billion years, and until this is the only time where we've had this calm, where there wasn't always something volcano shifting, this going on, that going on. It was the calm where the human race could actually develop. And we know that before that because if you go because of the sunken cities they found off the coast of Cuba, I mean, not of Cuba, off of India, those date back almost 15,000 years. So that's pre-evolution of man. That's pre where we were supposed to be. I mean, civilization is only supposed to be 6,000 years old. That's almost triple. And there's a significant find in the Middle East of a Stone Age, actually would have been Mesolithic, actually.
Oh, and today they announced the finding of an 11-mile across pyramid in the ocean. Oh, in the wrong ocean, by the way, not in the Atlantic. Because they're dubbing it Atlantis, but it's in the Pacific. It's not in the Atlantic. It's off. I think it's off the coast of. I personally, what I think it is an old mine or something that fell off the Mexican shelf down there, probably from an earthquake. Probably sank, but they can see it. As a matter of fact, I think you can see it on Google Earth now. They were talking about it earlier today on the radio. That's how they found it.
But I mean, a lot of those do turn out to be geological artifacts. But the one I'm referencing, it's in the Middle East, and they found 42 stone stelae carved with decorations and symbols. That's 10,000 years old. It predates any known civilization by 4,000 years. But if you've got people erecting large stone rocks and carving them, then you obviously have some way of feeding them because they're not out hunting or farming or whatever. And this predates the 8.2 kiloyear event, which was a climactic drop in temperature. And so there's reasonable evidence from this that civilization had started and then got knocked back by the sudden drop in temperature that would have in that area would have affected any proto-agriculture, would have forced them back to being hunter-gatherers and eaten up, the time they would have had available.
Well, you see, that's the thing. I mean, so right now, with what you're saying and what we understood about India, we've got anywhere from 10 to 15,000. So we've got an additional anywhere from 4 to 9,000 extra years of history that nobody wants to talk about. Why? I mean,
they don't really know about.
Yeah. But you would think like the pyramids, not the pyramids, but like those two cities. I mean, this city is 15,000 years old, had 250,000 people living in it. I mean, that's not even supposed to have gone on pre-Ice Age. So I don't know what's going on back there. And for some reason,
with they talk about sea level rise now, but between 25,000 years ago and about 8,000, there was 120 meter sea level rise from the Ice Age glacial caps melting. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that's underneath the water on coastal plains. A lot of it's probably eroded in salt water by now, or from tidal effects, and we will never know what it was. And that's where
I'm sorry, the pyramid's 8.5 miles across, guys. Sorry.
Okay, but that's where any civilization would have been close to the sea, for food, for transport, for anything else. And if they got submerged during the post-glacial melt, there's no way we will ever have that information.
Yeah,
it's gone.
Well, there's the sunken city off the coast of Cuba. Everybody always thinks it's on the besides the United States and it, but it's not even actually off the coast of Cuba. There's a harbor on the southern side of Cuba, and it's actually inside the harbor. And you can see it quite well. There's 3 pyramids there. We actually talked with one of the oceanographic companies that were there, and then all of a sudden they shut the whole thing down. You're lucky you can even find. I actually kept a map of it because people always thought I was crazy. I said, "Oh no, I kept a map, one of the satellite maps." So I still have it. It's actually on one of my pages somewhere. I use it as a back screen. But like this one they're finding today, it's just west of Mexico City. So it was probably part of the big Incan or Mayan nation. And it's sunk.
Mayan.
Yeah, they said it's 11 miles across, was spotted on Google Earth, and then now it's been being studied. And there's actually been a lot of close-ups taken. They said they don't doubt it's a pyramid or a real structure, not a natural structure. But most people are agreeing with what I'm saying. They think it was just one that was built there and then was dropped off the coast. Let's see, we got somebody calling in there. Let's see, we'll let him in a second. But who knows? People, it ain't a UFO left over underwater.
Well, I'm going to
just because it's underwater don't mean it's a UFO. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to try and tie a couple things in there since we're sponsored by Galaxy Press. So
Galaxy.
Former civilization that we can't find, and then we've got all kinds of different these days competing cultures. L. Ron Hubbard's book Battlefield Earth is long after an alien invasion. The aliens have been looting the Earth's crust for resources. And the people are scattered little villages. Civilization is gone. Everyone's pretty much down to Stone Age or Iron Age cultures. And, through the efforts of the story's protagonist, has to form a cohesive element, has to try and retake Earth from these alien invaders who hold all the resources. And it has to try and grasp back and rebuild civilization that's long been gone. And so discussions with aliens, discussions of politics, cultures. It was a very well done book, and they released
it was. I'm glad you said that because when Jonathan was on from Galaxy Press, we talked about the book. Actually, too, I played that 50-hour thing during the Christmas holidays. The audio book, ladies and gentlemen, it was a lot of fun. It was 50 hours. I played it in its entirety. I just let it run through. But anyway, when Jonathan and I were talking about this, I told him that they did a disservice to the movie because the book was so much better than the movie was.
Yes.
And, I mean, that's the case a lot of times. But in this case, there was so much more in the damn book than there wasn't. And that was the problem. They couldn't fit it into the movie. So they were chopping,
the problem is
stopping.
You can do about a page a minute. So 90 pages is a good length for a story to turn into a book. How they managed Harry Potter or the Lord of the Rings movies is amazing because they managed to cram so much in there. But the audio, you said the audio is 50 hours, and the audio is wonderfully done. They've got different actors. It's not just narration. There's different actors. They've got sound effects.
Actually, I really enjoyed it. I mean, in all fairness, I didn't listen to all 50 hours, but I listened to quite a lot of it because, I'd catch like an hour or two and come back and catch another hour or two. And fortunately for me, I'm familiar with the story, so I wasn't at a loss when I was coming in and out. The sound effects were great. The actors were great. It was enjoyable. Ladies and gentlemen,
like an old 50s radio play.
Yeah. It is. Well, I like doing that, though, because I do play War of the Worlds. At least 3 times a year I play War of the Worlds. There's a couple other ones I play as well that people send me. So, it's just a nice thing to do, and it's fun, and and even for my millennial friends and even the Z generation, they enjoyed it as well. Because, a gentleman wrote into me, a young man, I should say, he's a Z generation, about 22, he writes to me, he goes, I had never heard that. He said, I've seen all 3 movies. He calls me Mr. Joe, by the way. He ain't going to call me Mr. Joe, but he said, he said it was so fun listening to that. He said, I listened to it twice. I said, yeah, it's a different experience. Because there's a lot of work that goes in. People don't realize how much work goes into these audio things. They just think, somebody's sitting there making a bunch of noise. That's not true. I mean, these are actually real actors. I mean, it was good. And the sound
50 hours is, it would have been something that has to be described. It would work as a mini series, but trying to cram that into a movie.
Oh yeah,
just doesn't allow most of the content or nuance.
And maybe that's something somebody ought to think about is redoing Battlefield Earth as a miniseries. Started out where they get, they take over and then let some time pass and a couple of series, and then show them building up to like flying the air things. Because that was one of the hardest things about that movie. People was buying all them guys that go fly Harrier jets. Harrier jets are one of the hardest jets to fly. They're not even an easy one to fly. They are one of the hardest.
And they've been around for
things nonstop. And
they were still functional after 1,000 years.
Yeah, and that's another thing. So they should have played it up where they found some arsenal and they were reworking the arsenal and they were taking their time training these people. And it would have been a better play. And I know that's what they wanted to do now that I've talked to a couple of people on this and Jim Mars and a few others about it. And I know that's what they wanted, but unfortunately you have movie times. And what the movie was like 3 hours, wasn't it? A little over 3 hours.
I don't know. I've seen several classic and talks to producers in some cases of classic sci-fi stuff that was made in the movies. And the studio just adamantly will not allow some of the things they need to make it work properly. So they have to do the best they can.
We got a caller joined us a minute ago. I was being rude to him. Caller, you there?
Yeah, still here.
Oh, hell, man, what's happening then? You calling from India? You're calling Indian at $1.99 a minute, please. Insert here. What's up, man?
Yeah, very funny, Joe.
I'm just saying. I gotta make some money here, man.
Yeah.
How you been, Callie?
Good. Though had my laptop crashed a second time in a few months, and the second time pretty much lost all my data, other than stuff I posted on my Facebook and my website. So yeah, so I'm trying to rebuild stuff I made.
Larry's writing in while you're talking. He wants to know what you pay me to get on my show. He said he's been trying to get on the show, calling in for 2 years. He can't get on. He said, Callie. Yeah, I said, Callie sends me a bribe. Y'all don't worry about it. I can't tell you.
I don't have the money to send him a bribe, so don't believe him.
He's not bribing me with money. He's bribing me with artwork, people. But anyway.
Ancient Chinese secret?
Yeah.
Actually, because he asks good questions most of the time. That's why I let him on. Because, man, I don't like when people come on and ask me some dumb question. I'm like, what? Come on, don't do that. That's something real. Because you get the guest time, you get the host time. But anyway, I keep cutting you off. So what's up, huh?
Yeah, well, a couple things. Like one you were mentioning, like a little bit earlier about that sunken city those 2 sunken cities off of India. Like I wanted to question where you read that, because like the only thing I could find personally about
the very first time I seen it was in Discovery thing on the Discovery Channel. That was the first time I seen it. The second time I seen it was on the History Channel. And then somebody just recently posted it to one of my Facebook pages. I think it's the one where not the one where I get the long hair, but the one where you can see my bald head and my beard. I think it was actually on that page. I'll go check for you, but that was up there. And then that was, but the easiest way to find this. I'm glad you said this because people listening. The way I originally found it was I was doing a tsunami search. on the tsunami is what I was actually doing. We were doing news, and I was doing a tsunami search. And one of the things they had said about after the tsunami had wiped out that city in India, and that when it receded, they found 2 cities off the coast of India. And it's originally, that's all they said. And then a couple of years, I think a year passed, and then they estimated the city was pre-Indian. And India is like China. It's got a long, rich history. It dates back 5,000-6,000 years. So it's not like a one we don't understand. This predated them by like 6,000 or 7,000 years. So they were confused by it. Even though they think it was still part of their culture, they don't know exactly why it existed. And then, the one that's off the coast of Cuba is supposed to be roughly around the same age, anywhere from 10 to 15,000. Most people say 12,500. I have no idea where they come up with these numbers, to be honest with you.
Well, there were people there then, so.
Yeah, so it was interesting to hear all of this, and it's nice to know that there may be, maybe we were more advanced earlier than we thought, which makes me feel better.
And actually, it does coincide with recent evidence we found even just last year, where we found 5 human fossils in Morocco that date back 300,000 years old, which is like 300,000 years older than previously thought, and that also coincides with a genetic study that found that humanity may be up to 350,000 years. So we are definitely much older.
Were you the one that posted the one to my site about the South American Indians and Native American Indians they're divided? And they originally, and this confuses me, they all were supposed to have come over in the land bridge at the same time, but they're saying no. There's a genetic difference between Mesoamerican Indians and Native American Indians. So they're saying
they're now saying that it was.
Go ahead.
They're now saying the genetic difference was here, that they came over as one migration, but then split.
And then split here.
So there's still ongoing research into all that.
Yeah, because
I saw hypotheses of like 5 or 6 migrations, and then they said, only 2.
Ultimately, they all genetic studies point out every living in North and South American being descended from Siberia, but there's been but before they thought it was one single migration, though they're thinking now it's been multiple of them, and there's actually I think possible evidence in California of some form of human that made it to the Americas about 30,000 years ago, and they think it might even be Neanderthals, though it's yet to be fully confirmed. They mostly have is certain scratch marks on a mastodon tusk. So
yeah, but I'm not sure about Neanderthals then, because they were in the process of dying out at that time, and they never really got out of Southern Europe.
Yeah,
they were stuck by the ice. So it's not impossible, but it doesn't seem likely with what we know. Very but then they're constantly finding new stuff. Yeah. But then they've just determined that same, you were referencing older modern humans. They've determined the splits between the Neanderthal and the the other ancient group they found, the Denisovan cave people. Yes. Yeah. So they think they've determined when they split, and then the Neanderthals basically kept interbreeding with
modern humans
and modern humans. Yeah.
So while we're on this subject, because I wanted to bring this up while we were on this, the other day I was reading an article about 1.9 million year old fossil human ancestor found in South America. This is far older than anything we've even heard of before. So there's 2 new articles out about this one. What happened was it. Hold on, let me. While we're talking, I'll bring it up. I was just. It just came back up. But give me a second, I'll tell you where. They were talking about this, and the reason this came up is because most people don't realize it, but Mayans have a different skull than the rest of Mesoamericans. Their skull's shaped different. They're maybe a separate ancestry. Maybe it was boarding. Nobody really knows why, because we know with the Aztecs, with the Nazcans, that they bordered, and that's why their heads were different. This they think is a genetic thing. They think that they were maybe Neanderthal related or something, but they don't know what it was. But anyway, they still, to this day, their skulls are still different, even in today's society. So what they were thinking is maybe. Well, let me finish. What they were thinking is maybe because genetics proved that we couldn't have come from two people out of Africa. It just doesn't work. Half our planet would be retarded. It just doesn't work. That would be interbreeding beyond belief. That's not something that's even feasible. And you couldn't just have them grow up and, even if there was 100 or 200 of them in Africa, it still wouldn't work because eventually they would just interbreed each other. So what's more than likely the truth of the matter is you probably had individual areas on this planet where human-like creatures sprung up and interbred. Like we know Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal bred one or the other out. So it's not beyond possibility that there might not have been natives already in South America. But I don't know if it actually makes a difference. Even if it was, I don't see where it makes that much difference in our history, other than, okay, we can say that maybe there was more diverse ancestry than we originally thought it, but does it change anything today? I can't see where it would make a difference. I'm just confused, guys.
Yeah, though, like, two things I should point out, like, one like, difference in skull shape among isolated human populations is not an unknown thing. It's actually something that rarely occurs in like populations of the same species that gets isolated. In fact, I think there's a couple examples in Europe. And
actually, to quote them, this is the only species on the planet like this. All the rest of the human skulls are identical as far as the way they develop and they grow. This one is not. This is a whole group of people that live in South America that have different skulls. And matter of fact, the people who actually wrote this up said they are almost positive we do not share the same direct ancestry as they did.
Did they? They
don't even know where they came from.
Again, I question the source of it because a lot of things that I found that you talk about, like, they don't come from the best source, really the most credible sources. So, like, but there are like other things I want to talk about. But I'm saying, like, a lot of things I've been that you've said, like, largely because you told me to do my own research. I've grown very skeptical.
Always do your own research. Well, that's what I tell people. You should always do your own research. You can't argue a point with somebody if you haven't done your own research. You just can't. And it's one of your things. But actually, Callie, you need to learn dig a little bit deeper, because most of what I talk about comes from very reputable sources, usually from UGA or USC or historic sources. That's the only thing I use because I have to for the shows.
The skull shape's only one thing to look at. You have to look at the genetic mitochondrial DNA and see how they relate to other people. If there's no visible direct link, you have a case, but I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
It's like Lloyd Pye's. I shouldn't say Lloyd Pye's star skull because it wasn't actually his, but the Star Child skull was very interesting for a couple of reasons. One, when I held it in my hand, it's way lighter than an average human skull. It's way bigger than an average human skull, and it's been analyzed by a buttload of labs, and nobody can say how it became. They do not think it was a mutation. The way it's made, it looks like a species that was ongoing. Their frontal lobes would have been much bigger than ours. The brain in general would have been almost twice the size of a human brain. And like I said,
that a big cone-shaped one?
Well, there's 3 or 4, but this isn't really a cone shape. When this is more, you can't see what I'm doing, but it's more rounded and out. You know what? You can't see it, but Callie, probably. Anybody who's watching my cam, there's a skull behind me, sitting in front of the television. It's kind of shaped like that one, but it's a way big. And this is what's really weird about this: humans walk leaning forward. In case y'all didn't know that, humans are always falling forward. That's how we're designed. This thing's neck was actually dead center, so its gravitational adjustment was much better than ours. It wasn't falling forward. It actually had a true center. Humans don't have that. For whatever reason, we're not designed that way. I don't know why. I'm not our creator, but we're not designed. Whatever this was functionally designed differently than we are. And it did have human DNA.
So we don't know, though, like, what the rest of the skeleton looked like.
No,
so,
and you know what else we don't know? We don't know what that other DNA is. We know that it has at least one of the relatives, and we think it was a female relative, was human. We do not know what the other relative was. And I hate to say it that way because, Mark, it could have been an alien. It could have been an ape as far as I wasn't there. I don't know. And science can't prove what the hell it is. Mainly because most of the DNA they test is just too old and too corrupt to really give them what they want. They did come to the assertion that it's old. It's not as old like some of the other ones. I think it's only a few thousand years old. Because it was with a group of Incans, Mayans, Aztecs. One of them, I get them confused for some reason. but they were somehow related to that group. This is a South American skull. This is another odd South American skull. There seemed to be a lot of this in South America. It's almost like whoever was going down there was showing these people something different. But
while mutations do happen, but
they do happen. But for some reason, they don't think this was a mutation, which confused me because it has to be a mutation because, or maybe it was genetically grown. But regardless, if the mother's human and something else isn't, then it's a mutation any way you look at it. I mean, I don't know how you get around that fact, but I'm not going to argue with somebody who has degrees in genetics when I don't. So
yeah, well, there's also like a birth. Yeah, so there's also like a birth defect called like hydrocephalus that occurs in kids that creates a similar effect.
But all that was ruled out. Like they don't think it was anything. They don't think it was any type of mutation. It wasn't caused by any diseases. There was no degradations inside the skull. There was no damage where the skull had been pressing or growing or was too big. It looked like exactly what it was. It was just a different shape. Well,
yeah, I've seen it. So
nobody knows what the plus is. And as far as I know, the missing DNA might just be hyperhuman. Something the next generation. Doesn't mean it was an alien.
Like actually come to think about it, like there's actually like someone that I see in my gym that like he's a dwarf, but he actually has like for some reason has a enlarged head at the top, but yeah, and actually reminds me a lot of this Star Child skull that I never asked him about it. That'd just be rude, but it kind of reminds me of that. Like, yeah, but I'm not going to take any like pictures to show you guys because again,
don't get yourself in trouble. But it's just you'll notice because the way these skulls were designed and the way the neck's centered and everything, this is a much different. And if it was human, it was a much different human than what's here today. It was actually a more advanced human. Doesn't mean that it wasn't something that was born and died, and we'll never know what the hell it was. It might have been a shoot off. It might have been a split of the human race that didn't make it. And I'm sure along the way there's been shoots that just didn't make it for whatever reason.
Yeah, but we're not going to strip mine the whole planet just to find out. But anyway, I wanted to like also mention something about the battlefield Earth because you guys were talking about that and like about getting adapted into a series as opposed to a movie like the first attempt. Like I think you have a good chance with sci-fi because they've adapted actually several like well-known science fiction books in recent years. Like two of the big examples are The Expanse and like a miniseries called The End of Childhood, which was based off a very famous sci-fi book series. And from what I understand, both have done really good, particularly The Expanse. So like if you want to get a re-adaptation of Battlefield Earth, like in the form of a series, I think sci-fi is your best chance.
Maybe right. So what we got to do, Mike? Get Jonathan to get involved.
Was that
just a good one?
Yeah. Childhood's End, Arthur C. Clarke.
Wait, say that again. They did right when you. What did they do? No, I don't remember. I don't know if that was Arthur C. Clarke or not. To be honest.
It's the end of childhood. It was Childhood's End, which was Arthur C. Clarke.
Okay, maybe it was. Now, well, there's that, and then Expanse is a good flick. It's a more reality-based flick for humans, anyway, technology-wise. It's a little out there with the life form, but it's that and Babylon 5 are probably the closest to where humans will get into space. It's more it's a more believable because we're not just going to jump into light speed tomorrow. So, if we get lucky, I'm not saying I'm not saying we couldn't get lucky, but if we go like we've done everything else in our existence, it'll take us a couple of 100 years and we'll be exploring the solar system with different forms of whatever. And then somebody might invent some type of gate technology or something like that, and we'll be hopping all over the universe. But remember this, ladies and gentlemen, you can't invent a gate technology and just hop through it because you got to know what's on the other end of it. Okay, so you still got to get there and map your way to it so you know what the coordinates are.
Yeah, we'll probably send like satellites through it if we ever find anything, or end up making one. I'm not sure if any such thing wouldn't occur naturally, or you have to find just some weak part of space and then use some form of technology to open up without creating a black hole. But
there's a physicist going, hold my beer.
Mhm. And we got a few listeners on this show because I've had quite a few of them on over the years. But all this I've talked about all this with Tyson and K-Ku and a few others, and it's interesting. And everybody's got their different opinion on where we may be or where we may. But most of the scientists I talk to, when I bring up the stepping stone theory, they seem to think that's what's going to originally get us into space, get us maybe to even our first or second solar system. I've always been worried about. Here's humans. We're going to Proxima. Well, Proxima is 3.8 light years, so we'll go a little further. We'll say 10 light years out. So we got a ship going 10 light years out at half light speed. And it's about 5 years into the mission, and here comes a ship by at light speed. Well, we'll see y'all when y'all get to the colony peeping, 20 years or so. I'm always worried about
Heinlein did several stories with that.
Yeah, see, that's interesting. I like that kind of stuff because it's something that'll probably happen somewhere along the line.
Though I think the stepping stone thing will, even though it probably will happen, I think it's going to happen a lot slower than you think. Largely for two things. One, maintaining artificial environments is a lot harder than it sounds. And actually, that's one of the things that's illustrated in the Expanse. Pretty much, in short, in space, a lot can go wrong. If you try to have a bunch of planets to create oxygen in an atmosphere, you have to make sure that it's all stable, because otherwise you create a cascade where all that oxygen supply dies off, and then you end up having a suffocating population. And also you have to, we don't fully know the effects that different artificial environments and different gravities on these moons and planets would have on our microbiomes, which is something that's been greatly overlooked. Essentially, our microbiomes, the microorganisms that live in and on us, are very fine-tuned to this planetary environment. And if you put them in a completely different environment, it can have very, very profound effects on our body. A lot of them could be
what you're going to do when you
negative,
find out that we're Martians and not Earthlings? And they might actually thrive over there. There's a lot of weird stuff that suggests humans aren't from Earth, and we didn't originally evolve here, so. The optimal body temperature for a human is 63 degrees Fahrenheit. Average temperature on this planet is 73 degrees, so that's a little bit different than what's best for humans. And
63 is not optimal for me.
Well, it ain't for me either. But I always figured 73 was about where I wanted to be. But hey, I don't argue with the science. That's them on that. But they talk about a lot of things when they talk about humans. It just doesn't really fit the.
Yeah, it's actually 37. It's actually the optimal human body temperature is or actually it says the average internal temperature is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Is that what you're talking about?
No. I'm talking about the temperature that we thrive in the best. Humans don't do good in really cold or really hot. Somewhere between 60
but with constant
and 73. It's we just don't. But a species
that's
thrives.
What we evolved with. That's what we evolved with during the Ice Age.
Yeah, well, it depends where we were, which we evolved with. Some of us involved in a hot climate, some in a cold. But
now it's getting warmer.
That's another thing. So we got to change it.
And also, it's very unlikely anything multicellular came from Mars, because of data we gained from satellites like Maven. Mars pretty much lost its magnetosphere at a very early age, 4.7 billion years ago.
I've been reading a lot about Mars. Everybody agrees that Mars was probably identical to Earth 50 to 60 million years ago. They're not even arguing.
I've never heard that.
Oh yeah, it's been all over.
NASA actually. I've been reading a lot of the latest Mars stuff and Mars data. I even posted a bunch of links on your Facebook page about it. And basically Mars has been stripped of its atmosphere and got to its current state about 3 billion years ago. So I really honestly have no idea where you get this.
That is what they originally said, and then they found that lake. And they changed that. So you got to keep up, guys. Y'all behind. They actually found a couple things. Let me finish. They found the rivers. They now know that there is flowing water on Mars. They know that for a fact now. They know that there's enough water on Mars to easily sustain a human colony. They figure there's whole rivers just frozen on the top because of that flow they just found. So they know this exists. Anywhere you got liquid water, atmosphere, and heat, you got life. So NASA's not even.
Earth is 88% water.
Yeah, but they're saying they're going to probably find life there now. They're not even thinking
about 88% water, not just.
Actually, they think they're going to find life underground, not just. And they're talking now. Originally, they were talking microbiological. Now they're talking like plants and stuff. They're thinking they're going to actually find life on Mars, and there's some reason for that. One, we know it snows and rains on Mars now. We know that the northern cap shrinks and expands, and when it shrinks, this big green black thing comes out and expands all over the cap, and then when it snows again, it shrinks and goes away. There's something growing there. There's something alive there and growing.
Chemical changes can do that too.
Yeah, chemical changes can do it, but this because there's oxygen and carbon on the planet suggests, and let's be honest,
there's
CO2
very little
only
oxygen.
comes from two things: either a live animal or a decaying animal. So something there was alive or dead, but that's what's called, and there's big plumes of this. So that means there's large pockets.
You get CO2 from.
No, not this. They said NASA said yes. NASA said they pretty much this could only come from life, and then there's oxygen to go with it. So when you got both, more than likely you got life somewhere. And they're not arguing the fact that it's some cave underground somewhere that's full of water and it's still warm. Probably does have some type of life, and it's probably. They said that's why they think they find it in burps. By the way, they think what happens is a fissure opens up, and it burps it, and then the fissure closes back up. It's probably a self-contained ecosystem in the thing, but they think there's probably going to be a couple of them, and that's not the only place they're saying they're going to find life in our solar system. They've changed.
They've been saying this for decades, and they still haven't got anything.
Well, yeah, because they're not going over there. For some reason, we don't want to go. We just want to talk about it. We don't want to go there. I don't know why we don't want to go to any of these places, but like with the new oceans.
We don't.
There's lots of people want to go.
I wouldn't say we want to go, but I think it's just that we tend to overestimate. We tend to. I don't think it's the issue is that we don't want to go. We just tend to underestimate like how dangerous it is to go there, not just like arrive there, but land there.
I mean, sci-fi's been talking about flying cars since the 1950s, and we still don't have a flying car. And of course, if you've seen Chicago Drivers, you really don't want a flying car because it would be a disaster. But I mean, they were talking about auto-driving cars, and now now that we have a grasp of how the algorithms work, a self-driving car is feasible. But it's still very, very complicated. Something that will be
I'm not getting
that will arrive, but slowly. But in the 50s, they were insisting, by 1980 we'll have self-driving cars that fly. Like, no, we won't.
But you need to listen to. There's a lecture given by Wernher von Braun about 5 years into the Apollo program. Go listen to what he says. We should have been on Mars a long time ago, guys. He said, and this is his own words, and I'm quoting him now, that the Apollo mission was not designed to go to the moon. It was designed to go to Mars. The moon was supposed to be a stepping stone to test the technology, which he said was completely successful, and they were supposed to be going to Mars with it. So they were already planning to go in there, and then I'll tell you what happened.
But Mars is 400 times as far.
Yeah, but the reason they didn't go with that is because somebody invented something else. Probably one of them little TRs we see flying around out there, but somebody invented something else because there's too much of this, too many of these things seen outside the atmosphere. They got them on video. They've got them on satellites. I mean, and these are ours. These are not anybody's. These aren't aliens. These are our technology. Matter of fact, you don't believe me? You can fly down to Louisiana, come over to the Mississippi-Louisiana border, anytime between 8 and 10 p.m. Monday through Friday, you can watch the TR-3 fleets. They just come hovering over NASA. They come in from Pensacola, from the one down there. They come over interstate along the wooded area. You can watch them because they blot out the sky when they come over. You can see them when they're coming over. And then they turn down. They go to the NASA Stennis facility. And then we've got fishermen seeing them in the Gulf going back to Pensacola. This is a regular thing they do. These things have been clocked out of Pensacola National Air Station at Mach 12 plus. This is not just some baby technology here, and we've had it for a while. I had Senator McDonald contact me in this way. It was 10 years ago about one that overflew his car in New Mexico.
If they were cracking Mach, that's readily trackable with any kind of microphone setup.
Yeah, well, not this. This was being videotaped when it went by. That's the whole thing about this. There's a lot of good stuff out there about the TR-3s. They've been around for a while, but it's like, and just to help y'all with this, ladies and gentlemen, so people don't really know what I'm talking about here. The SR-71 Blackbird was invented 60 years ago. It is still the fastest plane in the world in 2018.
Yeah, but didn't I actually post an article recently about about them eventually releasing the new successor to the Blackbirds?
Yes, they are. Well, the Blackbird's been retired. Yeah, the Blackbird's been retired.
But I'm talking about an actual plane
Yeah, they got a
successor
new
that they're
one. They
going to
got
fly
a new one coming. It's a hypersonic jet. It's not a regular jet. It's hypersonic. The U.S. has been working on hypersonic jets for a while because of threats of hypersonic missiles. So we've been working on them. The Aurora is supposed to be a hypersonic jet, which that's what the Stevensville sighting was, and we proved that. MUFON hates.
Well, I've been hearing about Aurora for 30 years.
Yeah. Well,
so
we proved what we were in.
Even if that exists, it's way out of date by now.
Well, I agree with you. But I don't know if you were familiar with the Stevensville sightings. I got a friend of mine who works for Boeing. Actually, she worked for Lockheed. She works for Boeing now, but she's a scientist that works on the projects, but she's a scientist in charge of security for the other scientists. Anyway, long story short, we were down in Stevensville. We went down to investigate the Stevensville case. And while I'm down there, I'm talking to the witnesses, and Joe Renard is recording everything on videotape because we always do. He's recording, and the witnesses start talking. I started hearing things I hadn't heard from MUFON, like it had rivets on it. I'm like, well, it ain't extraterrestrial rivets. It had chase planes following it. And then the guy said something that I had remembered hearing and reading in a classified thing, where the Aurora has dual sets of engines. And when it's at a cruising speed, the engines are running in a red color, and it's just cruising along, probably below Mach 5, Mach 6. When it goes hypersonic, the engines turn white. And there are 16 rows. There's 8 rows. Actually, it's 32 rows altogether. And they said when these things glow and start taking off, it just left the 2 chase planes sitting there still. We know there was a squadron of F-16s in the area that night, and they couldn't even get near this thing. And it was headed toward the president's ranch, and no one even cared because they knew what it was. Go ahead, Callie.
Hey, yeah, I need to get off now. Like, family's going to dinner, but at the end of the show, like, can you do me a favor and like scroll down your Facebook page? And I recently posted like 3 rough alien head models because I'm trying to remake those.
I know.
I like your
yesterday. I'll get you some feedback.
Yeah,
I had seen one yesterday.
Yeah, I posted all 3 of them together. So like after the show, like check those for me and like comment on them. So anyway, I'll catch you next week. Bye.
Be good. Stay out of trouble. Don't get arrested.
Oh, these days you get arrested, you get shot.
Yes, he's out in Cali, so tell him what I'll have to him out there. But
yeah.
Wait, that's right. I forgot. Cali practices catch and release. You're okay, man. Oh, no, you're not Hispanic. Y'all didn't know Cali practice catch and release? That was a good one.
East LA.
It's I got to tell y'all something. Last time I was in LA, I got off at Interstate because I was hungry and I wanted to get just old McDonald's hamburger. I walked in McDonald's, nobody spoke English. I'm like, where the hell am I? I didn't go to Mexico. I wasn't in Tijuana. I was in San Diego, man. I was in LA actually. And I'm like, nobody speaks English here. What happened? That was weird, people. It's America. Speak the language or go home. Or don't speak the language and go home. I don't care. Just don't speak English when I'm there.
Which language? Should they speak Ojibwa or Iroquois?
I know. It's that's another thing. And see, now that's the other thing I like that about, why they brought all this stuff up about the Indians, right? They're trying to say they're not native to America. They can't be claiming the land if they ain't native. Whatever. They were here first, regardless if they're native or not.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
I have to run here in a minute or two.
Yeah, we got to get out of here because we're right at the top of the hour.
Mm-hmm.
But they need to get all that stuff lined up. But make sure you plug everybody. Tell them your website again, where they can find you, how to get in touch with you, since we got so sidetracked and off topic. Go ahead.
Well, it's entertaining. Well, I'm at michaelzwilliamson.com. I've got several national bestsellers. I just won an editing award for an anthology I put together. That's Forged in Blood, and it's in stores. And then the paperback of my last hardcover, Angel Eyes, should be in stores in about 3 weeks. And since we're mentioning Galaxy Press, they're galaxypress.com. They also do the Writers of the Future contest for aspiring writers, and there's been several notable writers who have come out of that program. And they've got a separate site for battlefieldearth.com, specifically for the book, the audio track, the award-winning audio track, and related stuff.
Y'all should listen to it, guys. It's great.
I've got short stories coming out throughout the year. My bibliography page has those. I've got another collection coming out in July, and I've got several things contracted and other things I'm trying to put together. And I've got, at this point, I believe, 2 novels and about 6 stories that are available free online. Links are on my site. So you can, get a free sample before you have to start buying, just like a drug dealer.
There you go, guys. Hey, look, it's still free. Look, anything good free. I mean, people don't give away a bunch of free stuff these days. Actually, he's a good writer, guys. Y'all should check out his material. Check it all out. Galaxy Press, I have a lot of fun with it. Matter of fact, Carmen, if you're listening, where's a guy writing a book for me, man? I told Carmen I want somebody to write a book for me. He still ain't. I'm going to have to call him and give him hell about this. But anyway, guys, we got to get out of here. Mike, thanks for being with us tonight. You're always a great guest.
That was a fascinating discussion.
Yeah, I always enjoy this kind of stuff, and I always, where we get into, I love this kind of chat. Guys, if you want to know about disaster preparation, give Mike a ring. Pop him a line over there. We were going to talk about that. We got sidetracked. We got into evolution and South American. It's just fun stuff to talk about, people, because we're all learning, and it's a good debate structure, and everybody's educated on this topic here. So you got it from 3 different sides at one time. Pay attention, you might learn something. Anyway, we're going to get out of here. Mike, again, thanks for being in with us tonight. If you see John or Carmen, tell them I said hi. Galaxy Press is great, guys. Go over there, check them out. Remember, you can catch Michael all the time, and this archive will be available in just a few minutes. Check it out. Enjoy it. Any moans, groans, gripes, or bitches, you can reach us at icar@cox.net. Very easy to find. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We do have a YouTube video channel now. Next time we have Michael on, we'll get him on there with y'all. Y'all can see his lovely face, and maybe I can talk him into showing some stuff he's got at his house. Yeah. Just before you go, I was going to do this. Just before you go, I've got a huge sword collection in my house, mostly samurai and Japanese and Chinese.
Cool.
And they're huge. And people used to get mad at me because when I go buy them, I'd grab them and flex them. And he's like, "Why are you doing that?" I said, "One, I want to see if it's a through handle. If it's not a through handle, I'm not buying it." He's like, "What are you talking about?" I said, "If the blade doesn't go all the way through the handle, I'm not buying it." I said, "I don't want something if I go to cut somebody's head off, it falls off the handle, people. I want to know it works." But they're really nice swords. And one of these days I'll have to show you. I was going to put the collection in the studio, but then I decided not to. I don't want everybody looking at it. It's a lot of stuff there, and there's a lot of unique ones there too that took me a long time to find. So, but they're great, and it's a lot of fun to look at. But anyway, we're gonna get out of here because I know you got to get your butt going. You got stuff you got to do. Michael, thanks again for hanging out with us tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, you can catch this archive. It will be available in about 10 minutes. The video will be available in about 20. You can catch them on there. Be sure to check out Michael's website. And guys, again, if you've got any questions, write to either one of us. If you can't remember who he is or where he is, his name will be on the archives. But if you can't, write to me, and I will get you an email for him, and you can write to him that way. Matter of fact, his email and all is up on the UFO Undercover site right now. It'll be up there until next Monday, actually. So if you need something, go there and check it out. That's well, we put them up there. So I used to do it the other way, but I put them up now a day before the shows.
Right.
I'll get it after, so people, because if they heard it, they want to get information. The other way didn't seem to work as well. It seemed to work better. But again, I want to thank you, guys. Thanks for coming into the show tonight. Coming up next will be Conspiratorial with Adam Sanders. So be checking them out, and then followed by them, Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. On that note, good night, everybody.
Night.
All right.